How do we know it's low tide?
I look it up on
It smells funny.
You already know that. Why are you here? You never know, yes. Okay, this is going to be, we could get into things a lot deeper, but this is going to kind of explain why we have the tides. It's not magic. Some of the many things that are involved in the changing of the tides, and a website. I use NOAA Tides
Noah?
because they are the official NOAA, National Oceanographic Atmospheric Observation. Because I can get tides from all month, all year, and for next year, so I know when to tell people, just don't come down unless you want to go shelling all day.
That's a good thing, don't tell them that.
Right? Or when to go on vacation, someplace that's got a beach. I want to go with low tide, so I know how to look it up. So back in the beginning, where was my? I need my sun, my moon, and my earth. Back in the beginning, great big bang, cloud of dust and everything swirling around, and everything settled in and rotates pretty much counterclockwise. The planets spin counterclockwise, the stars go counterclockwise. The planets around the stars go counterclockwise. You could have just as easily gone clockwise. So we have a number of planets in our solar system, and they revolve in a plane. It's not a tight plane, it's kind of thick, so that the planets don't collide into each other. They're different distances from the sun, and they go around in this plane called the ecliptic. It's called the ecliptic because that is the plane upon which, we'll learn later, eclipses occur. Now, the Earth, just so you kind of know, making fun of my artistic endeavor here, as long as you can tell where North America is, we're good. So, we revolve around the sun, but we do so at an angle of 23 plus degrees, 23.45. It's on your sheet. And it stays that way. It doesn't change. We just like spin around every day and go around the sun. And it is this reason that we have summer and winter. Now, in summer, we're facing the sun here, so we're getting more of the rays. In winter, the southern hemisphere, the dark blue area, which is why I painted these two hemispheres of the Earth different, is going to get the majority of the sun. This plane that everybody rotates on also, aside from going counterclockwise, it's ecliptical. It's elliptic. It's not a complete circle. So being an elliptic, what happens is something comes in, forces are attracted to each other by gravity. It comes in and starts to spin really fast. It gathers momentum and then it tries to fly off. Causes it to go further away. Pulls back in by gravity, starts to speed up. So in winter, we are in what's called perihelion. Peri is around, like perimeter. Helio is the sun. we're closer to the sun in winter, but because we're tilted away, we get very little direct light and very little direct heat, like the last 2 days. Of course, us all being up in the north. Farther away, in summer, we have direct, but we're farther away. So we don't broil, which is nice.
So far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, equinoxes and solstices. Equi, equal, noxed, Latin for night, equal day and night. And that happens because when the earth is rotating and it's close to the sun will kind of almost stand still. But when it's directly off from it and hitting the equator, we have equal times of day and night around the world. And that happens in March and September. Your equinoxes. The solstices, solstice means standing still. And it appears that because we're at this apex down here, that the sun is standing still in the sky. And you see that in December and June. Summer and winter solstices. So the sun just kind of hangs here. It's at the highest point in the sky and it just seems to like be there forever. It's our longest day. Winter solstice is our shortest day. So we have this elliptical plane that we're rotating around. We have winter solstice, an equinox, summer solstice, and so on. Now we get to the moon. Anybody know why we only ever see the moon and the man?
See the moon what?
See the moon and the man. The man and the moon. I needed that second color.
Now we are.
Anybody? No. We only see it because the gravitational force is such that after a long period of time, one of the objects can be tidally locked. And what that means is that the moon itself also rotates counterclockwise.
You guys need to finish.
But it does so at the same speed that it rotates the Earth. So, it's here,
Can't stay.
and remember, every day this thing circles.
11:45. Okay. I just wanted to check in with you.
This little smiley face is the man in the moon. So, it's faithing,
From the moon and the man.
and over the course of the month, you still only see that face, but it has made a complete revolution. So it is matched to it's tidally locked. Now the moon interacting to the Earth is what really gives us the majority, the greater portion of our tides. They're tidally, gravitational pull one to the other. Water is kind of malleable, so it's affected by the gravitational pull. Mountains are not, obviously. And it makes the tide bulge. Now, if you look at the third page, I like to do the visual thing. So you can see, it creates a bulge. That moon, with gravitational pull, is trying to pull the water towards it. So the water bulges out on the side towards the moon. On the other side, the water kind of wants to fly away in a straight line. So there's going to be a bulge on the other side also. Now the water has to come from somewhere, so what happens is, bless you. The two areas where it has pulled water from are now at low tide. Where it's bulging is at high tide.
Say that again.
Yeah, say it again.
Where the tide is being pulled, where the water is being pulled by the moon, and it bulges out from the earth.
Low tide.
It's high tide where it's bulging out.
What?
But
When it's bulging out.
When it's
where it's
bulging out of
bulging
tide.
out, where the, yeah. So if the water's being pulled out, let's say on these parts of the earth, because the moon is sitting here. Water's coming, bulging out here. Up here, it's got, the water has to come from somewhere, so it pulls water from up here and puts it here. It's a wave. We have a crest and a trough. This is the crest, this is the trough. This is the crest, this is the trough. Okay?
So the low tide would be on the other side?
No.
The side where the moon is, and the side opposite, this is where the tide is going to bulge out and be high tide. This is the crest of the wave. This is the trough of the wave. This is another crest and a trough.
It's just pulling.
So
But if water, you said the water is pulled from this side, and it's
the
coming
water
over
is
here.
pulled here
Yeah, where does it come from?
and here. It comes from up here
Oh, okay.
and from down here.
Oh, okay.
So it pulls it towards the moon, and it's gonna come away from someplace else. So it comes away from where there is no gravitational pull or inertia.
Okay.
Is another way to say this is the electromagnetic energy of the moon is pulling water towards it?
I don't think it's electromagnetic.
No.
No, just gravity.
It's gravity.
Two masses attract each other. Some law of Newton. Gravitational pull. It's gravity. Okay, so now we're okay?
So are those, because those graphics look, the only thing that's different on our graphic is these, but the moon here, it all at the same place, facing the same side,
Well,
and it looks like it's all full
it's
of
just
moon.
showing you that it's pulling it, that's all. It's in that minute in time. If the moon were up here, that bulge would be up that way.
Okay.
If the moon were up here, the bulge would be that way. This is just showing that you have the gravitational pull, and then you have the centrifugal force on the other side pulling it away, so your end result is a bulge on both sides.
With time.
When the moon is here, no, not always when there's a full moon.
Oh, okay, so that is, so it's full, okay.
Right, that's just where the moon is.
Ah, okay,
It could be full, could be new.
okay.
What?
I'm just teasing Nancy.
So how do we get full moon? My big son kind of died under a truck last week, so. This
What's the rest of the story?
So we have the sun. When the sun and the moon and the earth are aligned, we have a new moon. In other words, the sky is black. I don't know why they call it new, but it's the start of a cycle. Because the sun is directly behind. We can't see it. The moon is in shadow. It's kind of like if somebody shined a flashlight behind my head, you would be able to see my face. It would be dark because the light comes. So that's the moon. Now, when the moon is on the other side of the earth, away from the sun, so we have sun, earth, moon, it's a full moon.
Oh, okay.
Light shining nice and bright. And all the places in between, you have all the different phases of crescent moon. Now, when this is in really, really precise circumstance, we'll get an eclipse.
What are you gonna see?
Pardon me?
What are you gonna see? No, you're gonna see the sun.
We'll have a lunar eclipse, or in this case, oops, my name is,
Are there more solar or lunar eclipses, or are they about the same?
okay, you'll get a solar eclipse when the moon passes in front of the sun. So the moon has to be between the earth and the sun. If it's precise, we've all seen a full moon in the middle of the day. That's not precise. It's got to be in such an alignment and all this swirling around that the sun comes exactly behind the moon in order to have a solar eclipse. And when the earth is between the sun and the moon, the earth is blocking the moon's rays from the sun, so we'll have a lunar eclipse.
Makes sense.
The light bulbs did go on. Oh, the light bulbs did go on. To get a solar eclipse over North America, the moon has to be on this side and the sun here to get a solar eclipse. They're not going to see it here at different angles. To get it over in, India, it's going to have to be in this alignment. In this, it is so complicated where everybody is at any one time. You've got everything rotating, they're rotating on a plane, on an elliptical plane. They're spinning. This is spinning and this is spinning. Wow. It has to be, that's why we don't have solar eclipses every month or even once a year. or we have a partial eclipse. No, I dealt with that noise yesterday.
I wonder what prehistoric men thought when there was an eclipse, that the earth was ending or something, the sun was going away. Because it's such a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And it lasts for such a long time.
Back in the Roman days, remember all these things about time, like I know it's strange to say, we have 365.25 days in a year. A year is a human artifact. We made it up. We get as close as we can. And they came up with 365.25, which is why every 4 years, we have a leap year. Unless it's a century that's not divisible by 400. I did not make this up.
Okay,
In fact,
I'll probably miss that.
we have the Earth on the first page. Orbits the sun once every 365.25 days, that's why we have leap year. And I had to look this up, I will admit. Except in centuries not divisible by 400.
Is that
People that
another
did
new
these
thing here?
calculations are, brainiacs. I've looked at some of the tidal calculations and everything, and some of the astronomical calculations. It makes my two class look like kindergarten math. 1 and 1. Okay, the distance is the sun, Earth to the sun, sun to the Earth, is 92 million, average of 93 million. It's 92 million in winter and 93 million in summer. It's so much farther away. And that's 3 million miles, which is about 3%, having a 3 million mile difference in an average of 93 million miles. And that's enough that when the moon and the sun are in alignment, it creates an extra pull on the Earth, on the tides. So your best tides are at new moon or full moon, which is perigee, around, close to G, Gaia, Earth, close to the Earth. And we are at perihelion, which is when the Earth is nearest the sun in its elliptical path. Then we have all those things close. So it's kind of like adding extra people to a tug of war. And you're going to get your best tides. Now, because we have winter, when we're in perihelion, close to the sun, our best tides are December, January, early February. In fact, it was the day before Christmas this year. I went shelling in Englewood cake because I wasn't going to miss it.
Where did you?
Englewood cake, up by Tarpon Springs.
And, was it fun?
I found I was frozen because that day was also, we were dressed up like, my friend and I were dressed up like Nanoka of the North. It was one of those 39-degree days, and it was blowing like 20 miles an hour. Yeah.
We have to fix the car, so we'll find.
Yeah, we'll get to that, yes. That is the big contributor.
Can I ask a question that's a little off topic? But, I'd like your opinion on, like, lunatic and that the belief that people are a little strange during full moon. Do you know about this?
Yes.
Yes, and that I had a friend who was worked in a maternity ward, and she said they always have to staff more during full moon because there are more babies born.
I have, in my family, there's one or two cops, and there's always more.
Yes, more crime. I was a licensed operator in high school and college, and we get, you know, the calls are coming in just so you think.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And the cops will tell you that, and when people are crazy on the road, it's like, what is this? You know, outside of tourist season.
Yeah.
You go, it must be a full moon.
But what do you think that, I mean, our body's composed of a lot of fluid.
Well, we're what, 95% water?
Yeah, so that's.
So, there might be some sort of time, you know something about that? All
Yeah,
right.
so you guys, I've been studying a lot about quantum physics. It's the new science, not Newtonian physics. And basically, quantum physics says everything is made up of energy. So when there's an energetic pull with the tides, it's gonna affect us too. Like, we're all composed of energy. Everything is energy and movement. That's what the new science tells us. Fascinating.
Yeah. We're like a battery.
Yeah, it is true. I know that's.
I just get happy because we can go shelling. I just get happy because we can go shelling.
Oh, okay. In my head, I'm still driving back on the other coast. My other uncle lives in the beach.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Do you mind repeating about when the moon is certain way, the lowest tide? What you just said before December, January.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the date, the months, but Perry something. Yeah.
Okay. Perigee and perihelion. The moon is in perigee, which means the moon is closer to the earth. The moon in its elliptical path.
Thank you. Wait a minute,
Around
that
the
has a
earth.
different word, A.
Well, that's the other side.
Use two words that have P.
Perihelion
Perihelion.
and perigee.
Right, okay.
So perigee is close to earth. G, Gaia.
Yep. Yep,
And perihelion is around the sun.
I gotcha.
Helios.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm. So, and thank you for stopping it, because this can be confusing. It's a lot of stuff here.
You think?
You saw it.
I got it.
Yeah.
I am for that. Sorry. I will get everybody that didn't get a copy and send it to you. So here's the moon, and it's going around, and it's an elliptical path, and now it's out here. It's away from the earth, apogee. Like anything with A is usually means away. Like you abandon a child, you leave. The king abdicates his throne, he goes away from the throne. You abduct the child, you take it away from its home. So A, apogee, it's farthest away. Peri, it's around, close, perigee. And it doesn't go, the moon's goes around in a very wonky, at least the earth goes around kind of steady around the sun. The moon around the earth really kind of goes cattywomp. I love that word. Cattywomp, yeah. It means there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's there. So when we have a when we have a new moon and the earth is in perigee, so this is closer in versus farther out. So we're close in, we're in perigee, and we're in winter, so we're in perihelion. You've got the earth and the moon pulling with all their might to get that water spring up. Springing up has nothing to do with a season. It just means the water springs up. So even if this was on the other side of the earth, which would make it a full moon, but it's in perigee at the time, it's close, it's going to be pulling, the sun is going to be pulling, you're going to have all this action pulling, more pulling. More pulling equals higher highs, which means lower lows, which means more beaches exposed, and where we all want to get, you've shown enough in different places will have different topography to it. But you have a shell line that's kind of a dip. And that's like the first wave. It's maybe only 2 or 3 inches, but it's where the waves are lapping and all the shells kind of gather there as the tide's coming out. And that's when you go, there it is, and you gotta grab it real fast. And then you miss your curse because you can't see anything. And it's that ledge, and if you step there, you'll kind of sink down. And some places, like Kuwaitin, will have another ledge. It's actually about 8 inches. You want that exposed, so you want the water away from that area. So you want it as low as you can, so you can get there and take your time going through all that great shell hash, looking for the not big shells, but those beautiful little murex, olives, and cones, and well, there was a lot found this year because of Ian. One thing we can thank Ian for, I guess. Some terms, if you go down rabbit holes like I tend to do, and you're probably going to go down it, and do this. You'll see the terms cyanotic and sidereal. Sidereal comes from the Greek word for cider, star. So it has to do with the stars. And it's page 2. And cyanotic, there's a diagram down here which I'm going to explain visually. Cyanotic means meeting. Syn is with together, so it's usually a meeting. So here's what happens. Another thing that happens with tides. So I'm going to put this right over Florida. The moon is here. Earth. Now for one revolution, 24 hours, comes around, but since the moon takes a month to rotate around the earth, it's approximately 13 degrees. So while the earth has rotated one revolution, the moon has moved 12 degrees during that time, which means the earth has to move another little bit to catch up to the moon. That little bit happens to be 50 minutes a day, which is why the tides are offset each day by 50 minutes.
50 or 15?
50. About an hour. So you can always estimate. If I know what low tide is today, I can give you an estimate of what it's going to be a week from now. we're on the Gulf of Mexico, it's not that normal. But in the normal world, yeah. In an ideal world, there's the highs and lows, or 2 highs and 2 lows a day. Because, remember, we have the bulge towards the moon, and then there's a bulge on the opposite side of the earth as the moon. So, we're gonna get high tide here, high tide when the Florida is on the other side, and then back again for a full day. We'll get 2 highs, 2 lows on the east coast of Florida.
Does it increase 15 minutes?
It increases, it takes an extra, watch this again, okay? So, the moon is here. This is Florida. So the Earth takes 24 hours to rotate. But the moon, in that time, has moved 13 degrees. Now this has to catch up. That takes an extra 50 minutes. So knowing that, kind of guesstimate.
And you said that's East Coast Florida too, that's what you predict. The East Coast of Florida is exactly what you're saying there. We're a little different.
The East
here.
Coast is,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
all that differences, but the East Coast has 2 highs, 2
Yeah,
lows.
We don't.
Oh, you're from the East Coast?
No, but I go with a show.
Okay.
What about the, time when I look at my phone and it has low tide all day? All day long. Or the next day.
Did you die?
Huh? All day, it all has 2 times limit.
Because
That's the Gulf side.
that's the
That's
goal.
the goal.
Okay, I see.
That's what I was saying.
Totally on
The East Coast, she's got the
It's not
predictions.
the same.
You can't.
Yeah, because it'll show all the time.
It's
From 8:15 in the morning.
diurnal.
Right, but it still is not all day, it's still, it can only be like one time, it might have a long slack in there, but. Yeah. Sometimes we have okay, high times. So we know why we only see one part of the moon. It's not because the moon doesn't rotate, it does, it's just that it's the same amount of time it takes to rotate once, it takes to rotate around the earth. Because of that synchronicity, we only see one side of the moon. Why there's 50 minutes. Versus that. There's a good picture up here that really shows perigee and perihelion together. And they drew it this time. A lot of times when they draw the paths of planets around the sun or moons around the planet, they'll draw it in a circle, which is not correct. This is one of those, and I looked all over, for a correct representation. So you can see that the moon's path around the earth, that moon is in perigee on this side. The earth to the sun, this is closer here than it is here. This is perihelion. So you can see, visually see that closeness.
Is that the supermoon then? Or yeah. Would that be a supermoon?
Pardon me?
Would that be a supermoon?
Yeah.
What's a supermoon?
Supermoon makes the moon look like 7% larger, closer. And it's when you have a full moon and the moon is encouraging.
And it's wearing a cape.
So we have it, it's like, we go from like 223,000 miles away in Perigee to 54,000 miles in Apogee. So there's 31,000 miles difference in the moon's orbit between Perigee, when it's closest to us, and Apogee when it's farthest away. So when it's close to us, and it's a full moon, so that's not a common condition a lot, but we usually get 2 or 3 of them a year. We'll have a supermoon. Because it's encouraged, it'll look like it's closer. Which it actually is, but sometimes, yeah. Depending upon the lighting and some of the colors, wow.
So what they call the blue moon, is it just because it's reflecting? Is that just the
There's harvest moon and blue moon and blood moons and,
it's just the color reflection?
yeah, and a lot has to do with the atmosphere.
But in blue moon, that's when there's more than one full
Once
moon
a
in a
full
month.
moon, yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
that is anything.
Two full moons in a month.
That's all.
Blood moons and that, all these
That's
things, yeah.
Our blood moon is kind of like there's a day for everything. I think today is National Panda Day or something.
You know, it must be really hard for the astronauts to know when the moon, I mean, how does, you know, NASA know when the moon is going to be in the right place at the?
Okay, those guys, we are down here as far as our knowledge of the stars. Those guys are like up here.
They know.
They don't know shells from rocks, but they will tell you anything out of space.
And they don't check their phones for that.
Yeah, they don't have to look at their phone. They kind of like know all these minute intricacies. And they know who's doing what, and they know what exact questions they ask to get the answers. Okay, types of tides. We have this is Barnegat Light, New Jersey, since we don't have a thing for the TV. I can include this in an email and send you. As you can see, for the highs and lows, this is a month's worth of data. This is for March. You just kind of take one and pass it down. Take a look at it and pass it down. Take a look at it and pass it down. I just want you to see how even the cycles are. You can count on it, and this is primarily semi-diurnal. So there's 2 highs. Let's see what goes on. Yeah, it's this one. We've got this in the entire Atlantic Basin, pretty much, and parts of the Pacific. The Pacific is like huge, so it has some different dynamics. So, this is semi-diurnal, twice a day, 2 highs, 2 lows. We got it. And then we have Panama City, in the Gulf of Mexico. Which has diurnal, day, one high, one low per day. And that goes all the way down through Mexico. So from Apalachicola, across the whole top of the Gulf and down, we have diurnal. We get a little weird. So one of these is high tide, one is low tide. So this is your high tides. This is when we're in new moon or full moon. This is when we're nothing. In between, this is the lower part. This is the trough of the wave. So we don't have that much movement up and down. And then the moon comes around, and now we're in full moon or new moon, and we get the higher highs and lower lows. And then there's,
And see that middle part right there, is what you were talking about, Kathy,
Yeah.
where it doesn't change very much.
okay,
It's
Okay.
sad.
Okay. So
but
some
it's
days
not
that way.
flat line.
Right.
Yeah, I thought she meant flat line all day. It's like,
No.
What are all those big differences?
Why is the big difference from Panama and New Jersey?
we'll get to that. And then we have the West Coast, San Francisco. Which is mixed. Mixed means it's a combination of diurnal and semi-diurnal. And it is what the west coast of Florida, where we are, is. Yes.
That's confusing.
Yes. Now, the things other than,
Why?
the sun and the moon that go into making the tides are the bathymetry of the seafloor. So if you have a continental shelf, like we have all along the east coast of North America, you go out 10, 12 miles and the water's only 80 feet deep. In California, because it's on the leading edge of the continent, you go out 1 mile and you're 80 feet of water. It's a steep drop. Hawaii, then to complicate everything, there's these things called amphinodal points. Amphi, around. Okay? Surround sound, an amphitheater. Nodal points. There's 5 of them in the Pacific Ocean, I think 2 or 3 in the Atlantic, and others dispersed, about a dozen totally. And there are points at which there's no raising or lowering of the tide. The water stays still. So if I take this, there's a point in there where nothing's moving. It's sloshing back and forth all around this point. So it's getting higher and lower. And in the center, it's not going up or down. And then we have the Coriolis effect, which causes everything to go counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, clockwise in the southern hemisphere. So all these things are playing a part. Bathymetry is a big one. If you have a deep channel, Boca Grande, pass. It's narrow, it's 80 feet deep. Yeah. That little inlet kind of thing that's only like a mile across. It's 80 feet deep. And I've gone across there in my kayak, and I don't have to, nobody has to tell me that I'm in the channel. I know I'm in the channel because the water is flowing faster, the waves are bigger. It's got to get in. It's trying to push all that water in through that little opening. Same thing like Bay of Fundy. A lot of that water goes in. So it's a deep channel. And the west coast of North America, particularly up there like Washington and Seattle, all have deep channels. The Caribbean gets almost no tidal change because it's a big flat continental shelf, basically. Probably walk from one island to the next. There's just nothing there. Hawaii, because it's close to one of those early points, has no shelf, no big beaches. It all of a sudden sticks up. It's like a stick sticking up in a flood. It's not going to be affected by tides. Wind is a big thing. If you have high tide and it's an onshore wind, it's going to be even higher. Your street's going to flood. That street that always floods at a big rain is going to flood. If it's an offshore breeze, it's not going to come up that high. Now, low tides, when you have an offshore breeze, that's what you want to pray for shelling. It's going to be lower, exactly. It's keeping all that water out. Anybody here sail? Have a boat? Of course you do. You sail?
Used to.
Okay, have a boat? Okay. So you know, I've been back in San Carlos Bay, which is kind of like Lemon Bay, when there's been an offshore breeze. Fairbank Bay's are pretty shallow. Other than the ICW, you can probably walk across most of these bays. They're shallow. At low tide, I have to watch I don't ground my kayak. We only draw 6 inches, for heaven's sakes.
Where?
St. Carlos Bay, Lemon Bay, because it keeps all that water out. Do you remember, I believe it was during Irma, when Sarasota Bay, the water is out of it, manatees got stranded. Y'all remember that?
Yes.
That was all those winds blowing, keeping it out. It's like, instead of, what's that paper towel that sops everything up?
Bounty.
Bounty? Quicker upper? Yeah, that's right. Okay, you've got this flood of water, somebody spilled something. If you blew really hard, you could keep that piece of water, that water from going over the edge.
Yeah.
Same thing is happening with strong winds. It's holding the water back. That water's not allowed to get into the bay. As a result,
So, we've always, you've done, an excellent job of saying the tides, and you go low tide for shelling and look for the lowest tide. News affect that, But if we can look at that, if the winds are even stronger, it's a good time to, if they're pulling it offshore. It's even if you have not a very good tide, it'll pull that water still out.
Yeah.
And it's a great time to go shell it, if you want to.
oh yeah.
Okay.
And depending upon what you're after, like I do a lot of minis, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of happy, as long as I can get to the top shelf.
To the top shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I always carry a Tupperware container with me.
So that's the magic on looking at how the island, how the bays and the islands are, and knowing which way they're facing, to know what your winds are, is the criticality of predicting when you're.
Yeah, look at your weather app.
Yeah,
What are the winds?
Yeah, that's what we really, just for
Winds
other
coming
people.
from the west, it's going to bring the water in.
Yeah, you wanna,
Winds
that's what
coming
you
from
say.
the east, northeast,
Well, that's what it's doing with
southeast.
the red tide right now.
Pardon me?
The red tide, in and out, in and out.
Well,
Comes in, get 2 days maybe of nice beach weather, where you can go on the beach. Pushes it out, brings it back.
But you're saying the northeast and the southeast winds are not good, but the west winds are good.
No, we want winds from the east.
I think,
We
on
want-
the east coast, I understand.
No, our coast.
Easterly winds.
We want
Depends
it
on the island.
Easterly.
well, offshore.
I got what you're
Florida pushes.
Now, when you get northeast and southeast, then you get into,
Yeah.
well, what is the actual shape?
Yeah,
And with wind, it's the fetch that gets you. Fetch is the distance over which wind travels unobstructed.
yeah, okay, cool.
Something that's rolling across from Corpus Christi, it's gonna have a lot of buildup before it gets to us. Stuff that's gonna be hit the land, that's why you have to leave. So it's blowing really hard from the east, but you stand out there on Englewood Beach, it's calm as can be for a quarter mile out. And but it's gonna keep that water out. Barometric pressure is another thing. The temperature of the water, cold water is denser. Warm water is lighter. Get it warm enough, you have steam. It's really light. So you'll have differences between summer and winter on the same pulling effect, the same everything else effect, just because of the water temperature difference. We're pretty stable down here compared to Jersey, Maryland. They get really warm in the summer. And then freaking freezing in the winter. Water temperature, bottom friction in UK. And movement up, tides do not stop. Now, I come from some of this because one of my best friends is from upstate Pennsylvania. When she got into kayaking, you know, we were going over things and took her out a number of times, and she got into getting out into the bays, and she says, so I said something, she why don't you go kayaking, I think, down in one of the islands here in Philadelphia, in the Delaware River. And I said, well, we'll check the tides. Do you know about tides? Don't you know about tides? She says, yeah, move the beach towel at the beach. By the same token, don't ask me how to skin a deer, but she knew. Where did you grow up? That's the first thing I ask people when they ask particular types of questions about tide. Are you from a state that doesn't have an ocean? How long have you been down here? Yeah. There's all these things that go in. So she thought that the tide stopped at Cape May. Cape May Duluth is yeah. The tide doesn't stop there, it continues upstream. Every place, all up the Peace River. Into the St. John and down. Okay, so the tide keeps going until, again, a lot of factors are in this. The outflow overpowers the inflow and how far away it is. So if I'm going out of Everglades City, out Indian Pass Key to go camping, that's like 6 miles. Average with a loaded kayak, maybe 3 miles an hour. I wanna know what the tide is out here, because I can start out here on an outgoing tide, but by the time 2 hours has passed, it's coming in on the Gulf, and now it's against me. So, which is like, okay, but if it's coming in really strong, then I slip along the back bays and wait until it's past mid-tide, because that's their strongest current is mid-tide, because then by the time I turn and go out to the Gulf, it's gonna be less force against me. I'll have an easier time, and the older I get, the easier I want it. Yeah, it's like when I was 23, oh, dude, let's go. Now it's like, yeah, let's think about this. Maybe we want to take off tomorrow. Maybe we don't want to take off until late afternoon. So we're setting up in the dark, but we'll be able to ride the tide all the way out.
Do lakes have tides too, like Lake Michigan and Lake Erie, the Great Lakes?
Most of the time, they don't really have tides because they're not big enough.
Okay. Because I'm from Chicago, and I've never heard of tide.
Yeah. They might have like an inch or two,
Yeah.
some minor effect,
Okay.
but it's too, enormous land, like, and there's some, you know, the Dead Sea doesn't really have time to do anything. So each of these ocean basins, you know, in a perfect world, they have theories and tidal theories, and one of them, I forget the name of it, it's based on the fact, and you don't know this until you're halfway through and you've now tried to remember all this stuff. It's based on the fact there are no land masses on Earth. Well, that's the most perfect world, and to understand tide is to just have water going around the globe, and you can see this huge, long period wave moving around this with the moon. But we have continents and other things breaking it up. Think of water coming down the street and you throw parts of a tree came down. Now it's got to go around. So that's kind of like what these continents are doing. So each big basin, the Pacific is huge, it's kind of like a bathtub. Water's going back and forth. Now in the Gulf of Mexico, all we have is by the Yucatan, we've got passage into the Keys. So this is kind of like a bathtub within a bathtub. Okay. So you get this rocking back and forth, and then these waves coincide. They bounce back and forth. Something, who's the sailor? You're the sailor. Something called clopotis. And clopotis is when the water comes up, hits the wall, seawall, let's say, and the wind's coming in this direction, so the waves are coming in, it hits the seawall and bounces back. So you have all these waves.
Yeah.
We call a washing machine, because that's what it's like going through if you're in a kayak. Bottom friction plays part in this, going upstream. If you're shallow, the water is hitting the bottom. It's going to have friction. It's going to try and slow it down. So it slows down the bottom, keeps rolling on top. It will take from, okay. I'll have people come up, kind of gather around and look at it. I did on Google Earth the tide coming in at Boca Grande. And it's about an hour and 15 minutes later, you'll have high tide at Peculia. About 2 hours later, you'll have high tide at Hog Island. And then something like 4 hours later, you'll have high tide at Harbor Heights, which is along the Peace River. Kind of right where the Peace River starts going north. So it takes kind of a bit of time. So when I want to shell at Bunch Beach, which is near Fort Myers Beach, there's no tidal gauge there, but there is one at Yabel Point, which is Sanibel Lighthouse. So I look at Yabel Point. It's close enough. It might take an extra 10 minutes for low tide, high tide to get in there. You know, I can gauge it. Blind Pass between Sanibel and Captiva is an hour ahead. So if high tide at Yabel is at 7 a.m., it will have been at 6 a.m. at Captiva, the Blind Pass. So it's really good if you can figure out where do you do most of your swimming. I'm gonna guess it's Venice. You guys here in Englewood have no good tide stations. It's frustrating.
We do Kais.
Pardon me?
We do Kais a lot.
Kais is Caxamus Pass,
Yeah.
okay? So Caxamus Pass tides, you can also do Marco tides, but I like Caxamus because I like the name better. But that's for Kais, Dickens, Keywade, and I camp a lot on Cape Romano.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's gone now.
Pardon me?
The building's gone now from the storm?
Yeah.
The dome homes.
Yes.
I took my last picture May 4th last year. My kayak buddy and I went and stayed 3 days on Cape Romano. And as usual, I don't know why, it's one of those things, not being able to not pick up a perfect olive. I had to take a picture of her in front of me, bow my kayak and the dome homes in the background.
Right.
It's what I do. Little did I know, you know, it was kind of going to be getting too warm and buggy to kayak on the islands. Little did I know that it was going to be the last picture, because we don't really do that until like October. Plus in August, I usually go north and visit my brother and friends along the way and back down. And then I came back down in early September, but I left my gallbladder in New Jersey. It decided to not want to be part of my body, so that meant I couldn't lift anything heavy for so many weeks, so I get it wet, yada yada. I was fine. It's not camping season yet. Well, then Ian came along.
So are the dome homes gone now?
The dome homes at low tide, you can see the tops of them.
Oh,
Everybody knows.
I was surprised they made it through
All the other
Irma.
campings,
Yeah.
Hmm.
I have pictures
They're gone.
back as early as
They're gone.
maybe 2011. I have pictures of the dome homes of when 2 of them were still on the ground, because we made camp there, camp right there. And my friend is, you know, clambered up and is up on, going inside the dome home. And then it did move. Mother Nature moved the tip of the island. And then it was like, moved the islands, now it's like, a couple hundred yards offshore. I have pictures of that. And then I have pictures when it's a little more offshore, to where it was like a half mile offshore, and finally, I guess it was such a fierce storm that it disturbed so much of the sand that it just, underneath of it, that it produced what's called liquefaction. Liquefaction happens in like California, if anybody's from there, and it's where the ground is so saturated with rainwater that houses start sliding down the slopes. Yes, it's called liquefaction. The liquid happens, and it's the liquid in the medium it's in. Yes.
Kathy, do you ever use any apps on your phone for winds or for tides, or do you plot everything out ahead of time before you go?
I want to know. In fact, what I was going to do is test my, there is an app on your phone for tides, and I think it gives you a day or two, but you know, the phone is not my appendage. Okay? I didn't come out of the chute with one of these things in my hand. And I know there's an app for that. Pretty soon there's going to be an app to go to the bathroom. I know. But some days, do you ever just want to, when people say there's an app for that, you just want to go through the wall? It's like, please, it's a phone. You can use it as a phone.
Yeah.
Oh, another oddball fact. I digress a little. The Metonic cycle, or Iliadecteris, which is 19 in Greek, is defined as 235 synodic months, which is a few hours longer than 19 years. This is when the lunar phases will occur at the same time. So today is 17th? 16th, thank you. Today is May 16th? March 16th?
I love it.
Yeah. 19 years ago, on March 16th, the tides were exactly the same as today. 19 years from now, it will be exactly the same.
Wow.
Somebody figured that out. Tides will be the same. It'll be a full moon. We'll be in the same cycle.
But what about, the Earth orbit is changing?
Let me give her a little.
But I know it's changing. I don't know the degree, but it keeps on changing. That's not going to affect anything.
The Earth's orbit is changing very little. In 25,000 years, okay, wow. The sidereal cycle,
Kathy,
is,
I just need to tell you, we've got only about 15, 20 more minutes in the room.
got it,
Okay.
The sidereal is based on stars. So, when we were here and we did the moon and rotating around, and it had to go, this rotated, so the Earth had to move. Okay. If we come around here, this is pointing to a star out there, Polaris right now. To get in sync, it's got to turn again. So one is synodic, which is together again. So it goes from new moon phase to new moon phase, full moon to full moon. When it doesn't, then it's sidereal, it's going out to the stars. Polaris right now is so far away. It's our North Star. And in 25,000 years, it's not going to be that because of the Earth's little wobble. But basically, 19 years from now, I think we're good for another couple thousand to say 19 years cycles. because there's cycles to a lot of different things.
Wait and see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, there's so much.
Watch Englewood.
We can plan our shoveling mysteries way ahead of time.
You certainly can.
As we float into the
Okay.
ocean.
The website for the last page is my name, email address, and phone number. Website for NOAA tide predictions. And I tell you how to do it. So right now, I'm gonna have somebody who's not techie come up and test my instructions on my laptop to see if they work. They work for me, but you know, you shouldn't really test your own stuff. You need somebody else to test it for you. So who's gonna be the guinea pig?
Don't have a computer, go up there and be the guinea pig.
You?
No,
No?
not Jane. Poor Jane. No.
The only one in the shelter, probably.
Get Diane. Diane will do it.
She'll do anything. Okay, so from the get-go. I've got a mouse. Oh, he's on his bed.
This is so different.
Keyboard.
I know it is different. Okay.
Noah?